You want me to? Do you want me to play with it? All right. So, like I said, I've never done vlogging. Very new to it. Ruby just taught me a very valuable skill where you can't see it on camera here, but there's we essentially made like a little boundary for the camera itself. So that was super.
We know what's on camera.
Yeah, we know where we can play now. So super helpful. Something I just learned.
That's actually a dance trick.
Oh, is it?
So I spent years competing in solo and partner dance.
Yep.
And I learned that the best way to just change your body and understand how you're moving is video yourself.
Yeah.
Right? All those Instagram accounts of people working out, like they might be doing it for social media cred, but they also should be doing it to watch how they're moving.
Yeah.
And so I just have hundreds of hours of myself dancing, and I had to just block out
Make
a little
it,
corner
yeah.
of a dance studio
Yeah.
and be like, this is where I'm dancing.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So, cool little tip for everyone, including myself. All right.
Nice.
Hey, Fred. All right. So, before we get into some movements, I wanted to ask you a direct question of, so you've had this background in like body movement, like wiggle expert, let's say, something like that. What, coming here to BKB, like a climbing facility, how did that change kind of the way you started moving your body or like noticing what should and shouldn't be done?
Yeah. So after kind of turning down dance a little bit and turning up fitness, I spent a lot of time just doing like classic fitness stuff, squats, deadlifts, split squats, pull-ups, pressing, just trying to build my muscles and be stronger.
Yeah.
But all of that happens in a very controlled environment. So, when you're studying strength training, you're looking at like lines, alignment, vectors, and you're creating precision. And a climbing gym is the most unprecise sport of all.
Yeah.
Like it's less precise than anything else. People get into the most awkward positions in order to achieve their goal.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that turned everything that I was training on its head. Like I spent all this time working on, okay, you just want to load in the scapular plane,
Yeah.
and you don't want to go behind the scapular plane, or you want to just have this knee aligned over this foot. And now I'm in a climbing problem where I have to be here,
It can be so
and
different.
I have internal rotation, and I'm twisted, and I'm awkward, but that's the thing that solves the problem.
Yeah. So true too.
Everything wrong becomes right.
Yeah.
And what it meant for me personally was that even though I came into the gym in a pretty fit state and feeling very strong, I re-injured every old injury, all my old dance injuries, old sports injuries. I would find myself on the wall doing a heel hook and a hamstring tear that hadn't flared up in 5 years, suddenly flared up.
Yeah.
And it was because I was stressing my body in ways that I had never stressed it before. And what that means for me is that now I have to train in a more well-rounded way and break out of like the perfect planes of like
Yeah.
the perfect bicep curl or the perfect tricep extension.
Yeah.
So I still do use those skills. I still do ask people to do those movements in boot camps because I think there is an optimal range to work in, but you still need to have strength and control in all your ranges of motion. So definitely have spent a lot more time on the floor.
Yeah.
And a lot more time just exploring like all of the possibilities of movement.
Yeah. All the stuff you could find on the wall, potentially.
Yeah. Ankles when we're working out. And that's where I start with everything now. Is I start with feet and hands. What are feet and hands doing? How do we set them up correctly for success? And how does that travel up the body?
Yeah.
So let's do hands first.
Cool. Yeah.
So the first thing we always talk about, there's a lot of work to do on the floor to support your climbing. And, whether you're doing push-ups or just crawling around the floor, like what are your hands doing, right? The most common thing I see is push-ups with palms like this. So let's just extend the hands out and just feel like, okay, what does that feel like? Like how do your fingers feel?
Tight.
Tight.
My wrist feels tight.
Your wrist feels tight.
Yeah.
Let's come down to the floor and do palms on the floor. So what's the most common complaint you think people have with like a lot of push-ups or a lot of floor time?
I mean, like
Your wrists hurt, right?
Yeah.
You're flexing at the wrists, they're taking all the weight, and your hands are just there. They're just like floppy mittens.
Yeah.
So the first thing I say is spread your fingers as wide as possible and distribute your weight from the fingertip down and let the wrist, like the connection of the base of the palm, be the last thing that touches the floor. Sometimes I say, like, reach for that guitar note or reach for that piano note
Yeah.
so that your pinky and your thumb are really active into the floor.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, I bet you're feeling a whole bunch of activation through these flexors.
Yes.
Right? So now, not only are we getting an active stretch on the flexors, which are super overused in a climbing gym, but we're getting a little bit more distribution in the hands. And now, as we shift from side to side, it should be less of a wrist stress. And you might be feeling some sudden hand stress, like, oh wow.
Yeah, I feel in my left hand, I'm a lefty too, so this would make more sense, I think, of like, I feel the muscles in my hand rather than like the meaty parts of my hands
Yes.
kind of like moving around.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, it's kind of surreal.
The next thing is that the extensors, the tops of the arms, are pretty underutilized for most climbers. There's a couple climbing styles that really overutilize the flexors, but most of us have, the extensors. Most of us have flexors that are overused and extensors that are weak and underused. So even just spending time flexing up with a big wide hand can create some strength in those forearms and help deload all of the tension that builds up, whether you're a climber or you're just a lifter, right? Because we spend so much time gripping.
So I have a question with this, like we're focusing on wrist, but is it more in the forearm where the forearm's tight, therefore it's kind of like locking off your wrist?
Yes. Anytime you have dysfunction, right?
Yeah.
Like, could be a pulley injury, right?
Yeah.
I guarantee you that pulley injury is linked to some dysfunction in the shoulder blade.
Damn.
Right?
Yeah.
And you see it all the time. You see climbers climb like this.
Yeah.
Right? Shoulders pulled up. Now this is short. This is out of place. And now this pulley is taking even more load. Whereas if I had a fully engaged shoulder blade, right, I would have a pulley with a better connection to my arm. So if we're having tightness and pain in the wrists, well, what's going on up here? What's going on in the flexors, the extensors? What's going on in the elbows? What's going on up here?
Yeah.
So this is our first setup to the floor, is we spread the fingers nice and wide.
All right.
All right. Let's talk about push-ups.
Yeah.
What's your push-up like?
Ooh. So I used to be in the Army, and push-ups were my jam.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved them, and now I hate them.
Okay.
So this is good. Maybe I could fall in love with them again. But
Right.
my push-up is, I like do the straight elbow bend.
Oh, okay, cool. Why do you like those?
I think I like them more just because, I don't know. I think doing like the
wide push-up?
wide,
Yeah.
it puts more strain on my collarbone.
You were right. You're absolutely right.
I'm right. I'm right.
And you're an anomaly, right? The most common thing I see in class when I ask people to do push-ups is I see a wide stance. If the person doesn't have a ton of upper body mass, then we're going to see elbows up here, and we're going to see kind of a difficulty with getting all the way down to the floor, right? What happens with the shoulder joint here is that the shoulder rolls internally, and now I get like, okay,
Yeah.
just gonna fall down, and then I'm gonna struggle up. Right? That narrow push-up feels really strong and powerful. And the reason it feels strong and powerful is because you're getting access to all these muscles underneath the shoulder blade.
Is that like the serratus and things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay.
You know what the serratus is.
I do.
Most people don't know what the serratus is, right? The serratus anterior, it's those muscles that hang out under here. If you look at pictures of super cut bodybuilders, it's like the little fingers that interdigitate in the ribs.
That's wild.
How do we turn on the serratus, right? Let's come back to this setup.
Sure.
So we've got nice wide fingers. And you did it right away, is you roll the elbow pits forward. Right? Just this rolling motion is going to now set you up to have some nice activation here. Let's do a side view of you.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so just those elbow pits rolling forward, go roll them out and roll them forward. So roll here
Oh, I see.
and then roll out. Yep. So elbow pits rolling out not much activation here. Elbow pits rolling forward, hold and squeeze that. There's some activation there.
Yeah.
You get some more space in the AC joint. All right, so this is kind of like my ground zero, right? Is spread the fingers nice and wide, and then just be aware of the elbow pits, right? Because in this particular exercise, this is pretty optimal, right? I'm getting lots of serratus activation, I'm getting better shoulder stabilization, I'm gonna strengthen both my triceps and my biceps as I'm working through this pressing motion.
Right.
Solid, good work. But there's other movements where I'm gonna wanna be out here,
Yeah.
but it's about making a choice as opposed to just having a default. And a lot of times our default is collapsed and internally rotated. So most folks don't need to train internal rotation, they need to train external rotation. There's a few of us that externally rotate so much that we need to strengthen our internal rotation.
Yeah.
So important to pay attention to the balance of attention you give to the movement. Float your knees. Keep your spine as flat as possible.
No, it'd be like this, right?
Don't think about it.
That's all right. Why
Just
is
keep
this
going, keep going.
challenging?
Just go, just go. Just crawl on your hands and knees. It's okay.
Did I fall as a baby or?
If you did, you might have some problems. It stays really close to the floor. Stay nice and low to the floor. Don't bring them up too high. Okay, so there's a bunch of different ways to crawl in the world of animal flow, ido-portal, or just movement. And what we're focusing on in that movement is a couple things. The first is that nice like finger spread. This is actually a great shoulder rehab movement, right? You might feel it in your legs, but the movement of the shoulders and the back is actually what I'm after sometimes.
Yeah.
The next thing is that I'm looking for spinal stability. So if I'm here and my spine is round, I'm not training a neutral spine in my crawl. But if I'm here and I keep my steps small, now I can train this neutral spine.
Yeah.
I can engage my abs like I would
Yeah.
in a plank, but it's a moving plank. I don't spend time having people plank for time in class, because when are you ever on the wall just like that, right?
Yeah.
You're always moving through a plank. Here, tuck the toes, float the knees again. Good. And I want you to just keep a little space in here in your low back. Create this space here. Good. Let the plate rest on your shoulder blades and rest on the top of your hips.
Oh yeah, I feel
Now
it.
you've got a nice neutral spine, right? But if you lifted up your spine and rounded, right? Go ahead and lift your spine up and round up through here. Yeah, now we start to lose that contact, right?
Yeah.
But if we actually create a neutral spine here, you can kind of feel what that feels like.
Yeah.
That's what I'm after in that particular crawl.
It's almost like you let your spine breathe.
Yes, yes.
It's like lungs in your spine. There's lungs in your spine. Maybe. Don't quote me on that.
Cool. All right, let's take it up a notch. We're gonna do some more movement. All right, so let's see. Put you just like a little bit to the side and behind me so you can see what's going on. So now we've got our all four position. We're gonna just come up onto opposite foot, opposite hand, and drop the hip. Just drop the hip.
Oh, wait, let's see. Got it.
Yep. Just a little pivot. Great. Let's drop the other hip. Let's go the other way. Nice.
That was a lot harder for me.
Okay. Let this toe pivot. I'll pivot to the heel. Good.
That feels good.
Right? Yeah. that contra body.
It feels so good.
Yeah, that contra body movement, right? Connecting opposite limb to opposite limb.
Yeah.
That's super important, especially for climbing.
Yeah.
Everything in climbing is
Yeah,
contra body. It's all contra body movement, right? So here, we're gonna take this to. Let's take it to another context. Let's see. So we're gonna go here. We're gonna swing through. We're gonna kick out. And then we're gonna turn this hip. Good. Now keep your butt from dropping towards your heel. Lift up that butt. Good. Bring that arm up. And swing through. Good. Not meant to do as a pose, right?
Yeah.
This is a dynamic movement. So let's swing through both sides. So we're going to go to the left. Swing to return. And to the right. So let's do the left again. And to the right. One more time. Left. And right. Alright, take a break.
Thanks. I like that.
Alright, what do you feel?
Good movement. I felt my, well, one, I felt my shoulder really strong, like planted and like aligned way.
Cool.
And then my side body, actually it was like, I wanted to think it's my side body, maybe it is, but my hip motion
Yes.
was finally moving.
Yeah,
Feels
yeah,
like
yeah.
it doesn't move a lot.
Okay.
That and then almost like a strengthening in the side body.
Yeah. That. Okay. Great.
And my glute, my ass. Got a workout, you know.
Okay. So I get asked a lot, where should I feel this? And I always respond to that with, well, what do you feel?
Yeah.
I have an idea of where I think you should feel it, but every body is different. And if you're feeling it somewhere, and I negate that by saying, well, you should feel it here, right? It makes you wrong in your experience, and it will stop you from sharing useful information with me. If you're like, I feel this in my glutes, in an exercise that to me isn't a glute-based exercise, that makes me bring more awareness to, okay, well, what is this person feeling? What is this movement really about? Am I ignoring an aspect of this movement? Or is there something going on with them that we need to modify a little bit?
Yeah.
So,
Learning on both. I mean,
hey, excuse me.
I am the captain now. No, I am the captain now. Look at me. I am the captain.
so we're talking about how when you work with individuals, you're learning from them, like as they're doing the workouts, and it's like a constant learning environment. Like the one word I think of is what you're saying is feedback.
Right.
Like, where is the value in seeing feedback, and like how does it shape like every move, even like in that session with someone?
As somebody who moves daily and as somebody who coaches movement daily, I take my base level of strength for granted. I forget that things that I do on my hands is easy for me that I couldn't do 5 years ago. I forget what it's like to not have your glutes actually be active, because I think about that stuff so much. It's so part of my daily life and my movement. So being told by somebody, hey, this really hurts my big toe, that's real. And I'm not going to ignore that their big toe is suddenly cramping up, because that big toe is connected to a piece of fascia that goes all the way up the whole chain of the body.
Yeah.
And I think for 2 years I ignored people when they told me, well, when I'm in this position right here, my feet cramp up, because that never happens to me.
Right.
But that's a really useful piece of information about how that person is connecting in their rear chain. And so there's little things like that if you're not constantly getting that feedback, you're not really diving into how that person's body is moving. And that's like the closest we can get is to keep asking and inquiring and getting information and taking it in without judging it.
Yeah.
Because if you judge the information right away, you cut yourself off to a whole range of possibilities and problem solving.
And I mean, I feel like if you judge the scenario you're just cutting yourself off from learning something potentially new.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's like a million things. I mean, the more I do this, the more I realize I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I thought I knew so much 2 years ago. Oh my god.
Damn, that's exciting. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
So.
it's an abyss.
Yeah, it really is. Juan, say hello. 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 Come back.
Come back. Yes.